Saint Mary of Egypt. Saint Mary of Egypt is known for her dramatic transformation from sinner to saint. Born in the 4th century, she began her life as a prostitute in Alexandria not out of necessity, but because she enjoyed it. Her early years were marked by promiscuity and rebellion against societal norms. In fact, she once bragged that she never refused anyone who paid her way across a river. At age 29, Mary joined a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, not out of devotion, but to seduce pilgrims along the way. However, something miraculous happened when she tried to enter the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. An invisible force blocked her from stepping inside, no matter how hard she pushed. Realizing this was divine intervention, Mary fell to her knees in repentance, vowing to abandon her sinful ways if she could enter. From that moment on, Mary retreated into the desert, living as a hermit for 47 years. She gave away all her possessions, wore nothing but rags, and survived on whatever plant she could find. Her hair grew long enough to cover her body, protecting her modesty. During this time, she prayed constantly, seeking forgiveness and closeness with God. Her story became widely known after she met a monk named Zosimus, who discovered her during his own spiritual journey. He brought her communion and later shared her incredible tale after her death. Today, Mary of Egypt is celebrated as the patron saint of penitence and those struggling with temptation. 2. Saint Augustine of Hippo. Saint Augustine of Hippo. Born in 354 AD in what is now Algeria, Augustine started off as anything but a model Christian. His mother Monica prayed tirelessly for his conversion, but young Augustine indulged in worldly pleasures instead. He famously prayed, "Grant me chastity and continence, but not yet," showing just how torn he was between fleshly desires and spiritual aspirations. For years, Augustine dabbled in Manichaeism, a dualistic religion that viewed the world as a battleground between good and evil, and later explored Neoplatonism before finally converting to Christianity at age 32. This turning point came after hearing a child's voice saying, "Take up and read," which led him to open the Bible to Romans 13:13-14. That moment changed everything. As Bishop of Hippo, Augustine wrote extensively on theology, philosophy, and morality. Works like Confessions and The City of God shaped Western thought for centuries. But here's why he's controversial. Augustine's teachings on original sin, predestination, and free will have sparked heated debates. Critics accuse him of overemphasizing human depravity, influencing doctrines like eternal damnation and infant baptism. Some even blame him for laying groundwork that would later divide Protestants and Catholics. Despite the controversies, Augustine remains one of the greatest intellectual giants of Christianity. His struggles with lust, pride, and doubt make him relatable, while his eventual triumph inspires hope. After all, if someone as flawed as Augustine can become a saint, maybe there's hope for the rest of us. 3. Saint Joan of Arc. Imagine being a teenage peasant girl leading armies into battle. That's exactly what Saint Joan of Arc did in 15th century France. Born around 1412 in Domremy, Joan claimed to hear voices from Saints Michael, Catherine, and Margaret instructing her to support Charles VII and drive the English out of France during the 100 Years' War. At just 17, she convinced military leaders to let her lead troops, wearing men's armor and rallying soldiers with her courage and conviction. Joan's victories, including lifting the siege of Orleans, earned her legendary status, but they also made her enemies. Captured by pro-English forces in 1430, she was put on trial for heresy, witchcraft, and cross-dressing. Despite her eloquent defense, she was convicted and burned at the stake in 1431 at the age of 19. What makes Joan so controversial? For starters, her claims of divine visions divided opinion then and now. Was she truly guided by God, or was she mentally unstable? Additionally, her insistence on wearing male clothing has sparked debates about gender roles and religious obedience. The Catholic Church eventually overturned her conviction in 1456, and she was canonized in 1920. Today, Joan of Arc is revered as a symbol of faith, bravery, and patriotism. Whether you see her as a visionary warrior saint or a tragic victim of political intrigue, there's no denying her impact on history. As she famously said before her execution, "Hold the cross high, so I may see it through the flames." 4. Saint Simon Stylites. Meet Saint Simon Stylites, the original pillar of faith literally. This 5th century hermit took asceticism to a whole new level by living on top of a pillar in modern-day Syria for over 30 years. Yes, you heard that right. He spent decades perched high above the ground, preaching sermons, praying, and enduring the elements all in pursuit of spiritual perfection. Simon didn't start out on a pole, though. Early in his life, he joined a monastery, but quickly gained a reputation for being, well, a bit extra. His extreme fasting and self-denial annoyed the other monks so much that they kicked him out. Undeterred, Simon decided to go solo and thus began his iconic pillar-dwelling phase. Over time, his platform grew taller, pun intended, eventually reaching about 50 feet off the ground. Pilgrims flocked from miles around to hear him speak, and emperors sought his advice. But here's the thing, not everyone was impressed. Critics called his behavior excessive, even prideful. Living like a birdwatcher with no roof seemed less about humility and more like a cry for attention. Others questioned whether his public displays of piety undermined the quiet, inward focus of true holiness. Despite the controversy, Simon's legacy endures as a symbol of unwavering devotion. Love him or think he was a bit too extra, one thing's for sure, he definitely stood out in every sense of the word. 5. Saint Pelagia of Antioch. Saint Pelagia of Antioch might just be the patron saint of dramatic makeovers. Before her conversion, she was a famous courtesan known for her beauty, wealth, and extravagant lifestyle. Think red carpet glamour meets ancient Rome. Men would line up just to catch a glimpse of her, and she reveled in the attention. But all that changed when she encountered Bishop Nonus during a visit to Antioch. Here's the twist. Instead of condemning her, Nonus preached a sermon that struck a chord deep within Pelagia. She was so moved that she gave away all her possessions, dressed in simple robes, and fled to Jerusalem under the name Pelagius to live as a humble hermit. Talk about a glow-up, but this time, it was spiritual. Why is Pelagia controversial? For starters, her story blends fact and legend, leaving historians scratching their heads. Some skeptics argue her tale is more fiction than truth, designed to inspire repentance through theatrics. Others question whether her radical transformation overshadows the quieter paths to holiness. Still, Pelagia's story resonates because it reminds us that change is possible even for those who seem furthest from grace. Whether you see her as a reformed sinner or a religious rock star, her journey proves that beauty isn't just skin deep, sometimes it's soul deep. 6. Saint Constantine the Great. Few figures in history have shaped Christianity as profoundly your divisive liars Saint Constantine the Great. As the first Roman emperor to embrace Christianity, Constantine legalized the faith with the Edict of Milan in 313 AD, ending centuries of persecution. Sounds heroic, right? Well, buckle up, because his story gets complicated fast. Before his conversion, Constantine ruled with an iron fist, consolidating power through brutal means, including executing family members suspected of treason. After seeing a vision before the Battle of Milvian Bridge, where he reportedly saw a cross in the sky with the words, "In this sign, conquer," he credited his victory to Christ and began promoting Christianity throughout the empire. But here's the rub. Constantine's relationship with the church raises eyebrows. Did he genuinely believe, or was he using religion as a political tool to unify his fractured empire? And let's not forget, he wasn't baptized until his deathbed, which some interpret as evidence of lukewarm faith. Today, opinions remain divided. To some, Constantine is a saintly visionary who saved Christianity from extinction. To others, he's a power-hungry ruler who coopted the faith for personal gain. Either way, his impact on both religion and history is undeniable. Without him, the world might look very different and perhaps less Christian. 7. Saint Thomas Becket. St. Thomas Becket's life reads like a Shakespearean tragedy with plenty of betrayal, power struggles, and a shocking climax. Born in 1120, Becket rose from humble beginnings to become Archbishop of Canterbury and close confidant of King Henry II of England. At first, their friendship seemed unbreakable, but everything changed when Becket embraced his role as defender of the church against royal interference. Henry famously exclaimed in frustration, Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest? 4 knights took it literally, storming Canterbury Cathedral in 1170 and murdering Becket at the altar. The gruesome act shocked Europe and turned Becket into a martyr overnight. Miracles were soon reported at his tomb, and he was canonized just 3 years later. So why is Becket controversial? Some admire his steadfastness in defending church autonomy, while others accuse him of being stubborn and overly confrontational. Was his defiance truly divinely inspired, or was it driven by personal ambition? Regardless of how you view him, Becket's death marked a turning point in the struggle between church and staitier tension that still resonates today. As they say, the pen may be mightier than the sword, but sometimes swords write history too.